At 02:15 local time on June 21, 2025, the quiet night skies over the Atlantic carried an invisible armada. From Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, two B-2A Spirit stealth bombers had already taken off, their engines shrouded by radar-absorbing materials and carefully planned routes. Each carried precision-guided ordnance designed specifically for hardened nuclear facilities. Hours earlier, 4 Ohio-class submarines positioned themselves in the Arabian Sea, waiting for the synchronized signal to unleash a barrage of Tomahawk cruise missiles. Operation Midnight Hammer was not simply another strike. It was a meticulously planned assault meant to cripple Iran's nuclear infrastructure in under 25 minutes. The operation had been in development for over a decade. American planners understood that conventional strikes would not be sufficient against Iran's underground complexes at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Each site was reinforced with meters of concrete, shielded by advanced Russian-built air defenses, and surrounded by decoy facilities. Success required not just overwhelming firepower, but also deception, timing, and flawless integration of land, sea, air, and space assets. 3 days before the operation, a deception plan was put in motion. Satellite imagery from foreign intelligence services was deliberately fed with misleading signatures. U.S. Air Force tanker groups were moved in broad daylight to suggest routine exercises. Meanwhile, cyber operations targeted Iran's radar data, planting ghost signals that suggested phantom flights across the Persian Gulf. By the night of June 20th, Iranian commanders believed a minor air patrol rotation was taking place, completely unaware that the largest coordinated stealth strike since Desert Storm was about to unfold. At 19 Amayurdi GMT, the first B-2A Spirits departed Whiteman AFB. Flying at altitudes of 50,000 feet, they maintained strict emission control with all electronic systems set to passive mode. Their navigation relied on inertial guidance, updated by encrypted satellite bursts every 90 minutes. Over the Atlantic, KC-135 stratotankers waited at predetermined orbits, refueling the bombers without any detectable radio chatter. Meanwhile, U.S. Cyber Command initiated electronic suppression of Iranian networks. False alerts were triggered in Iran's Khordad-15 and Bavar 373 systems, convincing operators that no major threats were inbound. This cyber fog would prove decisive in the coming hours. At exactly Ordo 2:30 Tehran time, 4 Ohio-class submarines surfaced their communication buoys simultaneously deep in the Arabian Sea. Hidden beneath layers of thermal currents, these giants had been silently patrolling for days, waiting for a single coded burst to begin the strike. Once the order was confirmed, their vertical launch cells ignited almost in unison. Within 5 minutes, 148 Tomahawk Block 9 cruise missiles roared into the night, each plume briefly lighting up the ocean before disappearing into low-altitude flight. The Block 5 variant represented the most advanced generation of Tomahawks ever fielded. Not only did they boast a range of over 1,600 kilometers, but each carried a JMEW's Joint Multiple Effects Warhead System, a penetrating charge designed to bore through reinforced structures before detonating. Some missiles carried electronic warfare payloads, designed not to destroy but to confuse, disrupting Iranian radar grids and scrambling command links. To ensure saturation, the Tomahawks followed diverse flight profiles. Some skimmed barely 30 meters above the waves, hiding in sea clutter where radar struggled to distinguish them from whitecaps. Others climbed to 300 meters before diving sharply, mimicking the trajectories of manned aircraft. This constant variation split Iranian defenses, forcing operators to guess where the next impact would come from. Iranian coastal radars along Bandar Abbas and Bushehr eventually caught fleeting echoes of launches. But by then, the missiles were already weaving through valleys and riverbeds, hugging terrain with Turcom, terrain contour matching, and GPS guidance. At night, their infrared signatures blended with the natural heat of the desert floor, making them nearly invisible to infrared search and track systems. To intensify the chaos, several MALD, miniature air-launched decoys, had been deployed earlier by supporting aircraft. These drones projected the radar cross-section of full-size fighter jets, complete with electronic chatter. Iranian commanders, unsure which blips were real, ordered salvos of SA-6 and S-200 surface-to-air missiles against the Ghosts. At least 40 interceptors exploded harmlessly in the night sky, shredding nothing but decoys. By the time the true Tomahawk waves closed in, many batteries were already low on ammunition and overwhelmed by sensor saturation. What followed was a textbook demonstration of layered strike warfare. Submarines providing stealthy precision fires, decoys drawing out enemy reactions, and electronic warfare cutting the threads of coordination. Midnight Hammer was unfolding exactly as planned. While Tomahawks raced inland, a package of 36 F-35A Lightning II fighters, escorted by EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, entered Iranian airspace from the southwest. Flying at altitudes as low as 200 feet, the F-35s used their distributed aperture systems to track enemy radars passively. When a Bavar 373 battery near Bushehr illuminated its search radar, Growlers immediately launched AGM-88E AAR-GM missiles, destroying the site before Iranian crews even realized they were being jammed. This sweep was not about air superiority in the traditional sense. The objective was to create corridors, safe lanes for the B-2 bombers and Tomahawks to penetrate without interception. Iranian Su-30 and MiG-29 fighters scrambled from Mehrabad and Isfahan, but by then their data links were overwhelmed with false signals. Two Su-30s attempted to intercept what they thought were B-2s, only to find themselves chasing decoys. At Fordow 243, the first B-2 reached the Iranian border, descending to 30,000 feet. Its payload, GBU-57A-B massive ordnance penetrators, 13.6-ton bombs designed to smash through 60 meters of earth and concrete. The Spirit's radar cross-section was equivalent to that of a small bird, making it virtually invisible to ground radars. Guided by satellite-aided inertial systems, the B-2 released its first MOP directly above Fordow. Seconds later, the second B-2 targeted Natanz with identical weapons. The bombs drilled deep into reinforced bunkers before delayed fuses ignited. Seismic sensors registered tremors equivalent to a 4.0 magnitude earthquake. Concrete blast doors, thought impenetrable, were reduced to rubble. Within minutes, both sites that had taken Iran decades to harden were neutralized. At Fordow 249, the Spirits turned toward Isfahan, where uranium conversion facilities were located. Here, instead of MOPs, they dropped GBU-31J dams aimed at above-ground support structures, power grids, ventilation shafts, and control centers. By eliminating these softer targets, the U.S. ensured that even surviving bunkers would be rendered useless. As the B-2s exited Iranian airspace, the last salvo of Tomahawks arrived in synchronized fashion. Over 70 missiles struck secondary facilities, air defense nodes, and command bunkers. Iranian commanders attempted to coordinate a counterattack, but their communication lines were already crippled by jamming and cyber intrusions. By Fordow 255, less than 25 minutes after the first launch, the three core nuclear facilities, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, were effectively destroyed. In the immediate aftermath, Iranian forces scrambled to assess the damage. Dozens of SAM batteries had expended their ammunition on decoys. Air bases reported fuel shortages after scrambling fighters on false alarms. The Revolutionary Guard announced retaliatory missile launches, but few systems remained operational. Within 12 hours, state television admitted limited damage, but satellite imagery showed massive craters at all three sites. International intelligence agencies confirmed that Iran's nuclear infrastructure had been set back at least a decade. Several factors explain why Operation Midnight Hammer achieved overwhelming success: deception and cyber warfare. By feeding false data to Iranian radars and satellites, U.S. forces created a fog of war that forced Iran to react to ghosts. Layered attack strategy. The use of Tomahawks, stealth fighters, and B-2 bombers in overlapping waves ensured no single point of failure. Electronic warfare superiority. Growlers and F-35s neutralized radars without revealing their own positions. Weapon specialization. Massive ordnance penetrators were uniquely suited for hardened targets, while Tomahawks targeted infrastructure and command nodes. Timing and synchronization. Every strike occurred within a 25-minute window, overwhelming Iran's ability to respond. Destruction of Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, carried implications far beyond Iran. For the United States, it demonstrated unmatched integration of stealth, precision, and cyber warfare. For regional actors, it sent a clear signal. Hardened facilities are no longer invulnerable. Israel publicly praised the operation, while Gulf states quietly increased security cooperation with Washington. Russia and China condemned the strike, warning of destabilization, yet privately studied the tactics for their own doctrines. Economically, global oil markets spiked by 8% in 24 hours, but stabilized within a week as shipping lanes remained open. Militarily, Iran lost not just infrastructure, but credibility. The myth of untouchable underground complexes collapsed overnight. Operation Midnight Hammer highlights the evolution of modern warfare. Speed over endurance. Rather than weeks of bombing, decisive results were achieved in under half an hour. Data warfare equals firepower. Cyber and electronic measures were as crucial as bombs. Swarm logic applied to precision strikes. By layering Tomahawks, decoys, and stealth assets, the U.S. created tactical dilemmas no defender could solve. Joint integration, Navy, Air Force, Cyber Command, and even Space Force assets operated seamlessly. By dawn on June 21st, the operation was over. No U.S. aircraft had been lost. Not a single pilot was shot down. For Iran, billions in infrastructure were gone in less than a half hour. For the world, Operation Midnight Hammer became the textbook case of 21st century precision warfare, showing how deception, stealth, and overwhelming synchronization could accomplish in minutes what once required months of attrition.